and congratulated Poroshenko. May 26, 2015, Obama terminated Executive Order 13617 with Russia. Guess what that executive order was about? Sanctions on uranium. Now what is he doing terminating an executive order with Russia to do with uranium? Well, Putin had just figured out that they had played him for a fool. They were, quote unquote, using their quote unquote diplomacy back then, and they tricked him. And they started putting all their assets into Ukraine, which they'd been doing, but they amped it up even more because Putin wouldn't work with them. He wouldn't be controlled, but Poroshenko would. When you apply it all, more's coming here. January 23rd, 2018, Biden called the prosecutor an SOB, a son of a you-know-what. They fired the SOB over the $1 billion that Victoria Nuland had secured for Ukraine. That's the tie-in. That $1 billion is the same $1 billion. And Joe put it on record. July 16, 2018. What a coincidence that is. July 16th, President Trump's having a speech about election interference that all ties in. And July 16, 2018, President Trump meets with Vladimir Putin in Helsinki, Finland, set up by Major General Paul Vallely that I've been on podcast with. Yeah, he set that meeting up. Vladimir Putin handed President Trump a soccer ball. That was a capitulation. The ball is in your court. Now, what are the odds when you fast forward in 2022? What are the odds that Russia didn't play in the World Cup, which you just saw the finale today if you were watching? All right, what are the odds that Russia did not play in the World Cup? Soccer ball, sacrifice, capitulation, and then they go into Ukraine. See, we have joint operations going in Ukraine, and if you listen to special operators, we have special operations in Ukraine. They're decimating these nuclear, biological, chemical facilities. And it's the same thing President Trump did with Mexico, where he used 28,000 Mexican soldiers for the border wall. Same thing. You're using Russia to go in there and decimate all these things that the old deep state had funded. All right? And Ukraine's a part of it too. It's all a joint operation. So, do you go ahead and just tell the people what's going on? No, you don't do that. You know why? Because that isn't the only thing going on. So you get the dirty work done, and then you get all the dirty work done all over the world, and then you turn around and educate the people who are living. This is what took place. Because if you die, guess what? You're going to find out anyway, right? So if you die, you don't matter anyway. You're going to find out wherever you're going, up or down. I don't know about down. If you go down, I don't know how that works for you. You might just be extra thirsty, wanting water and wanting the truth and knowing the truth. We don't know. But I plan on ascending, not descending. I don't know about you, but that's what I plan on doing. So, you know, it's really all strategic, again, where you don't tell the people initially because you want to get out as many as you can all the way from the top to the bottom. July 16th, soccer ball. September the 12th, 2018, President Trump, Executive Order 13848 with a national emergency for election interference. Yeah, pretty cool, huh? Then, September the 17th, 5 days later, Ukraine breaks a Commonwealth treaty with Russia. Wow, that's a big deal. October the 20th, 2018, President Trump declares that we're leaving the Intermediate Range Nuclear Forces Treaty. Now, I'm going to read a little bit of it, and that way you'll hear. The U.S. declared its intention to withdraw from the treaty on October the 20th, 2018. This prompted Putin to state that Russia would not launch first in a nuclear conflict, but would annihilate any adversary, essentially restating the policy of mutually assured destruction. Now, what mutually assured destruction means, it's a doctrine Let me get my scroller here. Of military strategy and national security policy, which posits that a full scale of nuclear weapons by an attacker on a nuclear armed defender with second strike capabilities would result in a complete annihilation of both the attacker and the defender. But it creates a Nash equilibrium, which is where no player could gain more by changing their own strategy in a game. So meaning, if you have capabilities, but you make this pact, right, that, well, we won't strike first, but we will annihilate you if you do. Most of the time, it's kind of like when you see a little dog and a big dog, and they got something in between them, and the little dog's just barking away, but then you remove that from them. What does the little dog do? He shuts up, right? He don't bark anymore. Real simple. All right, so when you go read these strategies, it's an all-out strategy of that. President Trump announces that. We officially left it in February of 2019. So then in February 2019, February the 20th, 2019, President Trump issued Title 10 order to the border with a proclamation 9844. Now, ladies and gentlemen, a president doesn't have to tell you verbally that we've entered martial law in that kind of manner, but there's a proclamation that'll be there. If you'll notice that the southern border deployment of the National Guard was not in executive order form, it was in a proclamation. There's your proclamation right there that President Trump's telling you we're going into a martial law. Because it's in a proclamation form. It's not in executive order form. But in that proclamation 9844, there's a Title 10 order. That's a federalization order. It's not just a regular. It's not a state funding with Title 32. It's a federalization. And then you'll read that in this book right here. I always hold this up for everybody to get. All right. Check this book out. This is what all military law stems on. William Berkheimer, right here. Military, government, and martial law. I don't make money on this book, so you can find it on Amazon and everywhere else. But you can also get it on PDF form out there. There's an actual .org site that has a full PDF that you can also Control F and search words on it. But this right here, William Berkheimer, very beneficial for you. All right, it'll tell you what in a military government, all about a military government. And yes, it'll tell you also, for temporary purposes, supported by the Constitution, Article 2, the president can most certainly declare war without the Congress. It depends on what card he's holding, what hand he's holding. Right here. Stop arguing with the military. If you want us and appreciate us, stop arguing with us. December the 20th, 2019, we're back to that again. So, December the 20th, 2019, Space Force was established again. Global Fragility Act. All right, let's read the Global Fragility Act. It's a bipartisan U.S. legislative initiative designed to transform how the United States prevents and responds to violent conflict. It shifts U.S. foreign policy from a reactive containment model toward a proactive 10-year strategic approach aimed at addressing the root causes of instability. What have you heard in all of President Trump's speeches? A whole of government, 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 whole of government. But a whole of government is like the umbrella, the whole umbrella, and every other form is under that. So if you need a military government, continuity government, puppet government, you got to go study these things. Because they're telling you right here in the Global Fragility Act that was bipartisan passed on December the 20th, 2019. And you hear it in all of President Trump's speeches. You hear it in J.D. Vance's speeches. Whole of government, whole of government. Marco Rubio, whole of government, whole of government. Then your courts martial, your Title 10 overhauls, and then also your Title 50, Chapter 33, Section 1550. All on December the 20th, 2019. Now you add this timeline back to the 2014 and move it forward. So I did the 2020, 2019, December 20, 2019, throughout 2020, and then 21 to 25. Now go back and add backwards in this video, when you watch it again, go back and add it up. You do it backwards, you do it forwards, doesn't matter. It all adds up. Why President Trump would invoke a continuity government. Why he would invoke it. And his orders are there December the 7th. And then the publication from FEMA and Department of Homeland Security on January the 1st and 15th. The first time ever there's a publication for reconstitution. They're telling you what was coming. And that's why all the quote-unquote Joe was a puppet government. It was fake. None of it was real. And then it's called a puppet government. So the puppet government's out here facing the public civil affairs, and the military government's back here doing all the real work. Which is also, again, why you didn't see tariffs. They weren't terminated. It's why you saw PBS and NPR getting hammered in 2024. How come quote-unquote Joe and the Democrats couldn't save their own libtard organizations? I mean, it's pretty simple. It's not difficult at all. All right, now go back to this. Go back to January the 17th, 2017. There was a Federal Continuity Directive 1 put out. It was reissued. Federal Continuity Directive 1, 3 days before President Trump took his famous oath for the first time. And then also joint planning was put out, and also joint operations. So you got a Federal Continuity Directive 1, January the 17th. June the 13th, you have Federal Continuity Directive 2, which is the implementation portion of 1. And you had a joint planning and a joint operation 3.0 and 5.0, which is the military portion. Joint, meaning military joins with federal, of what would operate a what? Continuity of government. Guess who put them out? FEMA and Department of Homeland Security. So those are your umbrellas of your continuity government. And then you have on January the 1st, published January the 15th, a reconstitution of the executive branch. Never before in history. A publication addressing what we're about to do through the executive branch. And you just were about to witness a puppet government, which we've done before in history, not at this capacity. And a continuity government. And that's what the whole visual was, kicking off with a quote-unquote fake inauguration on January the 20th. This is not rocket science. It's not difficult. It's just new, and people never knew it existed, is the thing. And when you have something new like this that people never heard of, then they want to call it all kinds of things. Well, you're a marblehead. Sorry. You can change being a marblehead, but only you can do that. So you have those publications put out by FEMA and Department of Homeland Security. And you got President Trump on July 16, 2026 talking about FEMA and Department of Homeland Security. And what they had done what? Operationally, what they had discovered. The burn bags and all these other things. Well, you got to go back to Coast Guard. Now you got to bring in the Coasties. The Puddle Pirates, you guys get a special shout out. Go back to Executive Order 13912 on March 27, 2020. There were 4 Title 14 orders put in that as well. That's your Puddle Pirates. That's your Coast Guard. That's your Coasties. They were even called out of retirement. One of those was a retirement order. Man, that's when you know it's really special. When you get to come off your couch after getting fat and happy, when the military tells you if you got a reserve clause still on your contract, don't get fat and happy. Well, if someone had got fat and happy, they were having to go back to duty. All right? So, see, you got to know these things. As so many Americans have no idea that all these different orders exist in the military. Well, who does the Coast Guard operate under? The Department of Homeland Security. Unless what? Wartime. Then they transfer it to whom? Department of War with the Department of the Navy. And that's why Mobile, Alabama, my birthplace, Cape Cod, Massachusetts, and Miami, Florida, they've had striker units deployed there for quite a while out of San Diego. They have Coast Guard and naval units connected to each